Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 30. Well, today we will basically do the same thing we did the last time, build the new town, add some extra housing to it, trying to keep the track layers on task, and all that stuff. We will also try to sort out the farming situation, since in the last episode the main grain storage ran out, thanks to my leaky memory. We had to send the harvesters out to be repaired, and I completely forgot to send them home afterwards, resulting in a grain shortage. Shouldn't be a big issue though, since we have an import job set up for just such an occasion. By the end of the video, we will get relatively close to finishing the parts of the town that need to be completed for habitation. So the next one should just be about the final touches. Before we get started, if this is not your first video from this channel, you already know what to expect. If you want to be kept up to date, please consider subscribing, and if you like what you see, leaving a like will also help letting me know what to focus on. But enough talking, let's get into it. Might as well set up the next construction group from the new hub. Next, I completely messed up that fix I did in the last episode. As it turns out, third time was in fact not the charm. And checking the status of the grain silo at the farms will be a recurring thing in this episode. The replenishment rate will be super slow, and the game will keep giving us the notification about it being empty, so make peace with it now. After checking on the status of the railroad construction, let's start troubleshooting the new town a little. I did not check if the new houses are in range of all the services, so that's what we will do first. Thankfully, we have pretty decent coverage, but it's not perfect. The outermost house cannot reach the university, but adding a single extra footpath did end up fixing that. Yep, now the people will be able to reach it. The day is saved. And this is where I gave up on giving the people in this town high quality housing. I really wanted to go for that whole industrial town vibe, so building these low quality ones are the only choice we have. I tried to see if making the third one parallel with the road would look okay, but I think conforming to the other houses is the way for this one. That is pretty much all we can squeeze into this small city block without overcrowding the place. Now let's just hope the walkability is good. Technically, adding a footpath for every single entrance is completely unnecessary. But it does look pretty nice. And everything is in walking range. So far so good. That's 2 for 2. But we have a third one. Let's see if that will cooperate or not. And it does. This set of houses is good to go as it is. Also, let's not forget to turn off the automatic settlement option. We need to make sure the city is ready before we let people in. The situation with the grain isn't really improving. Don't worry, we will expand the farming area, and we will buy extra machines later, but let's just keep an eye on it for now. While looking at the factory silo, I did notice that despite the farming troubles, it was completely full, alongside with the food warehouse. So I thought, you know what? Let's start exporting food. If we are trying to improve farming, might as well do it with the increased production in mind. If we start exporting the stuff, then we can adjust the farm's output to that rate of production, which will ensure the best possible situation for the long-term prosperity of the Republic. Okay. Now that we are exporting food, the food factory will consume as much grain as it possibly can with the current worker numbers, so we can start adjusting the farms to this. The first thing I did was to disallow the trucks delivering the grain from exporting the leftovers. They instead will just continue filling up the factory, and not worry about selling the excess. We will let this new state of affairs run for a while, and check back on it periodically. We can get back to building more housing in the new town. Since I gave up on using high quality housing here, let's just keep doing the same thing. Now, I do feel like I need to warn you about this part. I will take quite a while, trying to come up with an arrangement that looks good. Well, this is what I ended up with. Some of the earlier attempts all felt a bit bad, and I will be honest, I am far from happy with this one too. I only noticed that one of the gaps is bigger than the rest. So we will definitely revisit this place before long. Anyways, now that I was done with building houses, it was time to add the garbage collection. I started with the one I deleted in the last episode, and then moved on from there, trying to cover everything. As I've said, don't get too attached to this particular place. I didn't even notice the inconsistent spacing while building the bin holder. I am a bit sad that I didn't get around to using trains to supply the workforce for the town construction. The track layers were a bit too slow this far away from their depot, so the regular kind of construction ended up being faster than the railroad building, and by the time we could theoretically use trains to bring in workers, it will be too late. Anyways, for loyalty in the lower part of the city, we will just place a regular old Red Star monument. The last one ended up being very efficient in covering the whole city, so I am hopeful it will do a similarly good job here too. And here, I decided we can start working our way up to the hilltop parts of the town. We really need to do a bit of work on this gravel delivery system, so we can include a truck loading station. But it will take up a lot of work, so I just let it be for now. We can however do something about the workers for the asphalt and concrete plants. I would prefer to avoid using separate lines for both. Thankfully, creating a connection between them from a bus station will be easier than it was in Satsumograd. We did end up going with a small bus station for this one. There was no way to put in a regular bus stop without demolishing roads, so we went with the next best thing. And walkability looks good. We can drop people off there, and they will be able to reach both production facilities. Well, I think it's pretty obvious that simply disallowing exports wasn't enough to refill the silo with the new increased demand. Let's see what we can do next. Let's start by buying 2 more harvesters and tractors. Once this last bridge is finished, we can start electrifying the tracks. Well, there it is. We are good to go on the catenaries. I made sure to avoid upgrading the construction crossings this time around. The grain refilling still wasn't going as planned, so it was time to try the next thing, namely the importing of fertilizers. I didn't want to get too distracted with the processing of bio-waste into the stuff, so I just opted to buy it instead. We had nothing better to do, so might as well buy the vehicles for the new town. Let's start with the waste trucks. I just went with the fastest options. Worrying about the big container carriers in terms of capacity was irrelevant anyways, so for those, speed is the only real deciding factor. After these, it was time to buy the rest. Police, ambulances, and the secret police. Speed was the only consideration for all of those. At this point, I also unpause the tunnels. Well, it seems all previous efforts were not really bearing fruit, so to say. Time for the next attempt, namely the expansion of the whole operation with some extra fields. This is where the disappearing farm road connections will actually save the whole thing. If both fields' connections are visible, the road would snap to them, instead of the central road, and make the construction impossible. But zooming in just the right amount will make one of them disappear, and that will allow me to place all the roads I will need. Well, as long as there is a node close enough to them to make it work. There. All the roads are good to go. For the benefit of the delivery trucks, I still made the central thoroughfare out of gravel though, so it will take a little bit to gain access to the new fields. I was hoping a bit more speed on this one, to be honest. Oh well, it will get done sooner or later. We do have 100 tons of grain in the silo though. It seems the fertilizer's starting to take effect, so this expansion might be a bit unnecessary. Still, it will not hurt to have it. Well, with electrification more or less done, I think it's time to buy the thing that will make the tunnel building a lot faster. That's right, time to buy the tunnel borer train. I didn't want to waste any time on using the EDKs, so I sent one of them home to release this new beast. And in it goes. It will slowly work its way to the other side, so the old track layers only need to build the actual entrances, and not worry about the digging phase. I think with the fertilizers, the farming situation is sorted, but the replenishment rate is still pretty slow, so adding those extra fields will help future-proof this setup a little. Anyways, now that the only rail construction active are the tunnels, we can give this end of the network the construction crossing it needs, to keep it apart from the parts that need to operate normally. It seems one of the buildings I plan on replacing is already close to completion. I think it will be okay, that particular one is more or less in the right position, so we can keep that one. And with the construction crossing in place, we can start placing the signals for this part of the network. Oh, right. This station also needs a crossing, but a permanent one this time. It's a terminal station, and those need the crossing to operate normally. Placing the signals around town is a bit more involved. We need to try and avoid placing them in a way that would result in blocking the roads if they happen to get held up for whatever reason. So, instead of just placing these two-way pairs like we normally do, we will need to do it as the situation allows. Like here. We need to make sure that if the trains are stopped, they won't block the road while standing still, and only do so if they can leave immediately. In fact, maybe we should treat these as railway junctions, and use chain signals before the roads, and regular block signals after. I think I will try to implement that in the next episode. I only realized that it's an option while editing. There is still quite a bit of work left to do in this place before it's suitable for human habitation. It needs power, the consumer goods, and not to mention the garbage collection. Still haven't decided if we will use a local processing to deal with the waste, or if we will just put it all on the railroad, and take it all down to the center we already have going in Dolny. But to be honest, I am leaning more towards setting up a garbage processing complex here, and do it properly this time around, and use this to process Dolny's waste. The one I built earlier is highly inefficient, so I would love to give it another try. I'm just a bit worried about wasting too much workforce on it, which could go toward making steel instead. But to be honest, we can make more than enough of that stuff with relatively few people anyways, so diverting some of them to dealing with garbage on a wider scale might not have all that much of an impact in the grand scheme of things. Anyways, if you haven't done it already, I'd love it if you subscribe to the channel, and leaving a like would also let me know that this video was worth making. If you feel that it was good enough, and you can afford it, please consider going to my Ko-fi page, which you can find in the description, and donate an amount that you feel is appropriate. And if you did like what you've seen, there should be links to some of my other videos and playlists on the screen. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you in the next one.